use a text that you had suggested before, Pema Chodron's A Joyful Mind. And so I've been, every morning, I just get up and go straight to that book. And then I open it and try to keep in mind the teaching that it says that day, and also to keep the general teaching in mind, which is the determination, the, I call it review, they call it reproach, the seed, try to keep in mind that you really do have that Buddha nature, and see if you can somehow connect with that. And then the aspiration to, and then just keep doing it, because I realized the familiarity, that's a really big thing.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm glad that's working for you, Martha. I mean, as we know with the path, we have to make effort. So it's very hard because a lot of us are lazy, and that's also pretty normal. But I think that, and when we hear that from other people, like what you're doing, it can inspire people. So thank you very much. Yeah, the familiarity really makes a difference.
I have to say thank you, because you're the one that got me started on it, and it got me back to a time when Lama Zopa Rinpoche just really looked at me and he said, "It's your mind." And it got me back onto that track of if you keep having and insisting that you have the right things in your mind, and you keep doing that, then it's got to work.
Yeah. Yes, and that is how it does work. Actually, that is how it does work. And I also think it's helpful for those of you that have a connection to a qualified teacher or a guru like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and you ever have had a chance where you've been at a teaching where one line went right through you, something he was teaching, or what Martha's referring to, a conversation with him, or something you can call up that inspires you. Something, just a little aside he may have said to you. Rinpoche doesn't waste any words. So I found there's things, and the reason he'll say something is 20 years later, that interaction pops up in my mind and I'm re-inspired. So those are very significant, those little moments you have with a teacher, that something that, and sometimes you'll wonder, especially with Rinpoche, at one point when you'll think, I wonder why Rinpoche said that. Or you'll hear something that Rinpoche told another student and the student's telling you, and it has a big impact on me. And I'll think, oh, that teaching, that was for me. Like Rinpoche said that to her, so it would get to me. So those are also significant moments to call upon in your path. I find that are really helpful, like that. And especially with the pandemic, where we're not able to go in person to teachings, and to try to conjure up some of those moments. But now you can also watch Rinpoche streaming online, and they're all recorded. So if you miss them, you can watch another time. And, even if you just put it on for 15 minutes, sometimes I'm in the morning doing my kind of morning routine before I sit down, and I will have something playing of Rinpoche or Sonia. So whatever goes in, it's not me formally sitting there, but I feel like I'd rather have that on than some other stuff we put on in the morning. And usually my house, it's silent, but if I do have, like, I'll think, oh no, I want to listen to that recording. I didn't have time yesterday. And so thank you, Martha. Yeah, I think it's really helpful that it does work when you apply And slowly you'll see some results. And we have to have the patience with that too. That. So I think we're all here now. Thank you for joining. Welcome. I'd like to start with some meditation. We were focused when we broke 2 weeks ago when we left off, because last week was Lama Tsongkhapa Day. And we were doing a beginning of a Tonglen where we were just taking the suffering. So instead of taking the suffering of others and giving the happiness, and this is a big focus of this particular module, this particular class in the module, is I'd like to focus on giving the happiness right now. Just to begin, we're going to be offering happiness. So again, just find a comfortable position, comfortable sitting position right now, and take a moment to make sure you're as relaxed as possible. You can lightly close your eyes. And if we can just mute the microphones. Thank you. And just allow your respiration to deepen. And just imagine now in the space in front of you is a replica of yourself facing you, just seated across from you. And just visualize as best as you can and as you look across at yourself, imagine the times you have been so happy, free in your mind, unfettered worry. The wonderful experience to care about yourself, to really send those wishes to yourself, because every one of us deserves care and love like that. And actually, we need it on the path. We need to care for ourselves in order to get enlightened, to benefit and care for all beings. You can't care for all beings and help them without caring for yourself. So it's not a selfish mode we're doing it in. We're doing it with the bigger motivation in mind. And reflect on your motivation first. To think that from doing this offering practice, the giving of Tonglen, the giving part, just think I'm doing it to plant deep seeds of virtue in my consciousness, in my mind stream. That will help me, further me on this path to enlightenment. So then I can really benefit. And I can really benefit all living beings. So if you like that motivation, feel free to include it in your purpose right now and just set that intention. So really for the purpose of all living beings, we are meeting this evening and that we're going to do this part of the Tonglen meditation right now. So from you seated here in your space, because we had been taking suffering and allowing it to reduce our self-cherishing, the self-cherishing that was like a constricted knot in the center of your core, it leaves us freer and happier. Let's offer from that place in our heart that is merged with our Buddha nature, that is merged with all of our good qualities fully manifest. From there, every time you exhale, imagine offering to that front visualization. Imagine it streams over to them in whatever images represent happiness and peace and bliss. Whether it's different colored light rays that enters them, filling them with joy and peace, whether it's images of happiness, whether it's words like peace, tranquility, happiness. Just send it over to them every time you exhale. When you inhale, you breathe in more resources, more positive resources. Exhaling all the happiness and joy to the front visualization of yourself. Just focus right now on the giving. And then slowly allowing the images, the light rays to come back into your heart, you seated here in your space. Just look across at the front visualization of yourself and imagine that being released of any fear, any lethargy, any imbalances, delusion, anxiety. Just happy, peaceful. And slowly acknowledge yourself in any way that you like as we part from our front visualization. And just allow that front visualization to dissolve back into the space from where they came. Please relax. So I find it really helpful sometimes to break down the Tonglen, the giving and taking. The whole meditation is done with taking the suffering. Every time you inhale, offering the happiness when you exhale. to whomever you're thinking about. And sometimes it's started with everybody thinking of all living beings. It's too much to think of to start with, I find. So I feel like we leave ourselves out of the equation. I think it's really helpful to think about ourselves. And even in instances before we had started, and Peggy was saying how the news can be really overwhelming right now. And it's been that way most of the year. So again, send some kindness to yourself. That's not being selfish if you have the right motivation, that you're caring for people, you're helping people in your community, at your workplace, your families, your householders, whoever's living with you. You're doing your best like that. Even just staying quarantined inside and going into stores skillfully with your mask and with hand sanitizers, and it is a way that we're helping other beings right now. So there's many ways we can do it, but if we're not taking care of ourselves, okay, then sometimes we're too fragmented. That can be difficult. Okay? So it's valuable, and you deserve it to take care of yourself. And that's part of the Buddhist path. And we'll talk a little bit about that this evening. We finished through verse 5. And I want to just read up to verse 5. If you can just close your eyes for a moment, let's reflect on the 5 verses that we have covered. This is just one particular version. Just lightly close your eyes and reflect. Whatever comes up, whatever you remember. Determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings, who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I hold them most dear at all times. When in the company of others, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart hold others dear and supreme. Vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. Whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I'd found a precious treasure. And number 5, when out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. Verse number 6, when someone whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. So we're going to go through 6, 7, and 8, the last 3 verses. Let's discuss verse number 6. So again, when someone whom I have benefited and whom I have great hopes give me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. This is a situation where you put in a lot of effort with somebody. You want to help somebody, okay? They're going through a difficult time. And then you meet them again, or even after your help, whatever, and they're completely non-appreciative, or they ignore you, they dismiss you, they never give you credit. Okay, it's happened to all of us, okay? Can be painful, you get resentful. So you want to check, I was expecting something, wasn't I? Often we invest in somebody, we give something to somebody, we help them with something. You have a long phone call with somebody and they want to air all their stuff. And there's a, check in your mind that for some of us, in the back of our mind, there's an expectation we're holding. That they'll give me credit when it comes up. So this is about patience. This includes practicing patience. So if we're able to, and you see that we could see it as a type of harm, that they don't have any reciprocal kindness, or they're ignoring me. So if we're able to bear that kind of resentment or that, I mean, that kind of somebody ignoring us, that kind of treatment, we might see it as harmful, okay? Then there's nothing to prevent the guru, Buddha's manifesting as somebody who causes us harm, because that helps us practice patience, okay? We need this person actually to practice patience. And you don't really know if they're a Buddha emanating to show us patience, to show us our mind. I've been working with a couple of people recently, and they've been in some very challenging situations, managing people. We joke, mismanaging people, right? That gets you into more trouble. But whatever it is, they're working with different people. It's been a bit frustrating like that. And then sometimes I just have the benefit of the doubt. You don't know who's enlightened. You don't know what realizations they have. But one thing I can do is just say, I may say I don't like this, and I don't like this person, and they're like this, and I might have negative words in my mind about them. But more and more, I really turn to, what's my mind telling me? Why are they showing up? Like, what is the message here? There's a reason they're in front of me, causing what feels like discomfort. That's my practice. Okay. And it's not about blaming them. It's something in my mind. There's a message in my mind. If I get it right this time, that person may go away. I may not see a manifestation of that kind of being anymore if I get it together. So one thing is to just give that benefit of the doubt. I don't know the realizations of this person. And again, I've joked with some of you before that I am an adherent, I might say, of the conspiracy theory. We've all heard about these conspiracy theories, right? Some of them are very dangerous. Okay, this is my conspiracy theory. This is the one that I kind of lock onto. Everyone is trying to get me enlightened. That's my conspiracy. So again, everyone's trying to get me enlightened. So here comes a jerk, somebody I might label jerk. And I don't really do it lightly. I don't really try to label people like that anyway, but I'll be like, this person's really challenging. Like, we've been through this again and again with them, or this team of people, and they keep showing up this way. Great, perfect for my practice. How wonderful. Okay, so just, again, this is Lojong, this is mind training. We've got to kind of wake up now. And sometimes I think to myself, I need to grow up now and start seeing things in a different way than just the ordinary way. And we're influenced by people around us. Absolutely. Okay. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama says having an enemy is not an obstacle to practicing the path. In fact, it's something essential for the practice of the path. Okay, so we come to a place where we're welcoming enemies. Welcoming enemies. It's not that we're trying to make enemies, but a difficult person is going to show up. We all have them in our lives. We all have them. Until you've perfected your mind, they're going to continue to come up. Okay, what are you doing with them? Just holding them, labeling them concretely difficult? There's a lot of work we can do there with that person. And it's with them that we get to practice patience. Think about your life when everything's easy and you're surrounded by all the people that are easy, that love you, your friends and family that you get along with, that it's smooth sailing, that you have fun with, and they're so fun to be around. They don't push your buttons. How much work are you doing when you're with them? It's pretty relaxed for me when I'm with people like that. They like me, they help me, they do good things for me, they say nice things about me. So I'm not really that challenged. My mind's not really working. It's not to say that we don't want to be around friends and family. Absolutely, we need it. It's wonderful. But that challenging person's going to show up. How's your mind? How's your mind? And like Martha was saying, have you familiarized it enough with some practice to say, this person is valuable to me? And in an earlier verse, cherishing them. Okay, so we really need this person. So again, when someone criticizes us, and this is like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I've seen this, somebody criticizing Rinpoche, he takes extra care of that person, and he takes extra care with that person. I've seen him with students and one time I was in a teaching, it was so profound for me. I tried to get the recording of it years ago in Bodh Gaya, India, the old center where we had tents. It was in a tent, the teaching, and there in the season in Bodh Gaya, there were a lot of people practicing, and there were all these different gurus that came around from Buddhist tradition and Vipassana Buddhism and Hindu things, and different Western teachers, New Age teachers would show up there in the season, and everybody doing a lot of practice. And there was a very charismatic American teacher that had a big following. And his thing was that we're already enlightened. This was his view. We're already enlightened. Okay, fair enough. And I went to one of his teachings, but a couple of his students, I think 3 of them actually, came one night to hear Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And one of them was a little bit provocative and was asking questions, but in a very pointed way to kind of, it felt like to trip up Rinpoche, to kind of prove that Rinpoche's way was not right. So, you know, you're not really going to be able to challenge that highly realized mind. I mean, it was very interesting, but I could see the tent was full of like 80 people. And I could see some of Rinpoche's students posturing themselves like this person should have been thrown out of the tent. They were being disrespectful. Like I could kind of see different people getting, you know, being frustrated and kind of whispering to each other and showing like disgust on their face. And I was just like fascinated with how Rinpoche dealt with this person. I was just watching, marveling at Rinpoche. Seemed completely open-hearted, a little bit of, I don't know what the word was, like a little smart in his remarks. Like you could see that it wasn't irritating Rinpoche, but I could see that Rinpoche was challenging him in a playful way, So it was a really big lesson for me of how to roll that in and fold that in without attacking back the person. And I have to say, it was one of the most brilliant teachings I've ever heard Rinpoche give about the Buddha and genuine guru devotion and emptiness. I mean, it was just, actually, he wasn't teaching about emptiness yet, but we all wanted a teaching on emptiness. This is what was so unique as well. We came there, a lot of requests that Rinpoche would teach on emptiness that night, but then the student turned up, started to ask these questions that dominated the evening. And I was a little disappointed at first because I wanted this particular teaching on emptiness. Went on and I got so much more out of it. And eventually they had their way of one student mentioned to another, and then the student suddenly said, "I'm sorry, I'm being prideful," like he was told by another one, "Stop questioning like this," in their little trio. And then one by one, they left the tent. And when they finished, and then the last one, when he left the tent, I was watching, when his heel literally left the flap, went down, Rinpoche went right into the teaching on emptiness because they weren't open to hearing it. So for me, it was just, so here you have this person. Let's see if we can in our lives embrace when that challenging person is there. When that challenging, because it can be incredibly beneficial for anybody around you, and you've seen this sometimes. You've seen people waiting. Some people are shopping now, or you're waiting for takeout food, or there's a little bit of a line. There's one store in my area, people waiting outside to get in, and it's cold now. So, and I've seen, when you see somebody else's kindness towards somebody difficult, you feel like you can step up too, and you can extend. It's been really a big space of heart when I see that in someone else, and I go, well, yeah, they're, and maybe the person that's difficult is just really struggling right now. Did we ever think of that? So think about, you need this person. You need this person. And then it says in the verse, I have great hope. Okay. The great hope is referring to, we have an expectation of friendship and appreciation from that person. It says, with great hope, I have, look at your expectation. You're doing something for them. You're giving them a gift. You do something kind for them. You help them out. You listen to them on the phone for a couple of hours of something that they've talked to you about in the last 2 weeks over and over again. Many things like this we have, okay? So again, check that there's an interest from your side you know, that you want to get something back, but you also want to make sure that they benefited. But that's your expectation. You know, I have the great hope. So can I let that go of you're just offering your help? When you practice generosity, when you're actually practicing generosity, are we giving purely or are we giving because we're expecting to get something back like that? And I know I really enjoy giving, and it's not like I have a lot of money to give, but I try to give as much as I can. I'm always thinking of things to give people. And there's somebody in my life close to me that doesn't think that way a lot. So when I mentioned something about, you know, I wanted to give small gifts to people, what came back was a response of, oh, well, why are you doing that? You know, why do you have to do that? Like I always get that back in a way, and I'll say because I want to, because I want to. So again, we usually have expectations in regard to our generosity, um, that thanks or appreciation of some kind will be shown. Okay, that's the fault on my part. You know, again, that's the fault on my part. And did you ever have that where you're giving something? You know, my mother drilled it into us. You write a thank you note. You write a thank you note. Um, you know, I remember my brother forgot one thank you note for one gift. We were kids, and my mother was like, oh, you know, oh my goodness. And so I often like it's just, and now there's a few people now that I know I can just send a text or an email, and but I enjoy doing it too. You know, but there's sometimes we're expecting it. We did something, they never said thank you. They never told us how great it was. They never told us that we were the one that made that happen. So just check that from your side. And then there's a nice analogy here of the mind, checking your mind as we're practicing Lojong again, to make the mind more pliable and flexible is part of it. You know, we're also changing the mind up from what our normal conditioned society is doing. And there's one example here that's mentioned in some of the notes of Rinpoche was talking about one of his teachers that would, in order to soften up leather that they got in shoes that might have been very stiff in the beginning, especially in Tibet in the old days, and they would put them in the sun, they'd rub butter into them in leather because it kind of tans it, it makes it softer. And his teacher would read texts while he was standing outside, and kind of massaging with his feet the shoes so they'd become more flexible. Okay. So again, as we keep familiarizing with the reasons for particular positive ways of thinking, when we remember the great benefits that come from that, we are softening up our minds, softening up our minds. And so much benefit can come from thought transformation like that. Once we're used to that, this is an adverse way of thinking from the way most people are thinking. Most people are thinking like that. And then there's some stories in some of the teachings of Master Atisha, who had an attendant who was a cook, who was apparently extremely difficult, very rude to people, very critical. In modern days, honestly, I had a great teacher who lived in Wisconsin, Geshe Sopa, who was one of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teachers. He passed away a few years ago. And he was a professor at the University of Wisconsin for many, many years. One of the early Tibetans that came to the West to teach. I think he came in the 60s. And Geshe Sopa had an attendant as well, who some of us joked and we were like, it's Atisha's cook reincarnated. He was really, really difficult. And, you know, I heard so many stories about him of people hating him, and he was making it so difficult. And so Atisha was approached, Geshe Sopa, I know, was approached by many students saying, you know, Geshe-la, like, we need to make a change. This is, and, you know, and both of them said, Master Atisha and Geshe Sopa, this is so great for my patient. Atisha right away was like, I need him to practice patience. I need him to perfect my patience. I need the bad-tempered cook. And Geshe Sopa, I heard him quoted saying, not only was it good for his mind, but he felt like this was good for all the students to practice patience with this person. So, you know, it's something to think about, to bring that in to the experience. Okay. So now here's a further level to go to. It's important to realize while we're practicing patience, okay, first of all, we want to practice patience for our mind. That's where we're geared, for our mind, okay? What is our enemy doing? What is the challenging person doing? So this is a bigger space of mind, okay? So here it is important to realize that while we're practicing patience, can we generate the thought, what's going on for the other person? Okay, they're getting angry, they're creating negative karma, okay? What if I kind of took the responsibility for what's happening to their mind, if I took that on, that what's happening to them, okay? This is the ultimate care of someone else. So a lot of times we're in a tussle with someone, we're in a disagreement, and it could become a bigger fight. And we're actually really, really irritated with someone. And if you're a Buddhist practitioner, you've been at this for a while, familiarizing your mind, you start to notice, this isn't working in my mind. So what do I need to do? You know, and there's some stuff you're going to have to formally do on your cushion with analytical meditation, but there's some stuff that right there they are in front of me, and I work on preventing me saying something rude, getting angry. I'll just check the anger at a lower level, let's say frustration or irritation, like that, but very much being vigilant with my mouth to not open my mouth right now because I'm really irritated. And all of it is coming from our side. What's my response? What I'm doing? What if we consider them? So in the analytical meditation I lead on dealing with a challenging person, that I believe there's one on my website or connected to the YouTube channel. It's more about at one point you become the other person, exchange yourself with them and look out through their eyes. You know, so suddenly we have this big consideration of what's going on for them. That doesn't happen for a lot of us. Okay, again, we're very concerned with what our behavior is to counter negative behavior. We don't want any more negative karma. And then if you can, to have a bigger experience of, if I do escalate the situation, if I insist that I'm right, or I'm going to prove to them, or I'm going to have the last word, okay, and it continues to make them irritated, angry, like that, think about what it does to their mind, what seeds they're planting in their mind of negativity. So it's a bigger space thinking to take care of them. Okay, again, from the beginning, the first meditation we did, caring for yourself, sending yourself love, happiness, peace. When you care for yourself genuinely, it gives you a bigger scope to care for others, to think of their experience. So it's a huge space of Lojong when you get to the point of realizing I need to shut my mouth right now because he's getting angry or she's getting angry. I care about them. I'm protecting them. And I'm not any great being doing it. It's not like, oh, I'm bigger than them, I know Lojong. No, it's just like, wow, I don't like going there into negativity myself. I suffer as a result of what I've created in my mind. I don't want them to suffer. I don't want them to go there. Let me diffuse this right now and just let go. So huge space to think about, huge place to practice. So remember with this verse, to view the disrespect of your generosity, also from the point of view of karma. The person ignored you, they never appreciated you, they disregard you, like that. From karma, if you think about your karma, okay, instead of focusing on their mistakes, their limitation, I can't believe all the time I gave them, all that I did for them, all the help I lent them, and they don't even say anything, nothing. It's just think this is just karma from the past, you know, and it's also creating negative karma for them if they're that in disregard over it. Okay, otherwise you start to get angry of how ungrateful they are. And you only see their mistakes, you only focus on their mistakes. So caring for others' karma, again, helps you avoid just seeing their mistakes. You start thinking about their mind. What are they creating? So instead, we're all lost. We're all lost here together. So when I think about that, I think I need to take a little care here. It's okay. They were busy thinking about something else. That's all. I don't need to over obsess about it and be upset with them. Again, from past verses, if you accept the defeat, okay, and know what is coming from them is completely deserved, is coming from them, this lack of appreciation, that's my karma. There's many people I didn't appreciate. So it's just coming back to me. Okay. Then I can develop some patience, and it grows my humility, because I've been that way too. That's where it comes from. And then you only want to ease their mind as well, to kind of quell any disturbance, any further disturbance for them. We pray all the time for others not to suffer. Okay, so again, thought transformation practices, they're really a practical way to help them not suffer. So here's what happens is, all the time we have a motivation that I want to get enlightened to benefit all living beings, okay? And we dedicate in the same way. And you try to be a good Buddhist by thinking of others as much as possible, thinking of others. But when the practice actually comes to light and there is this person that needs your help, the actual practice can be challenging, can really be challenging. So again, Lojong, it's such a practical way that I can really ease their suffering, ease their mind. It's just sometimes just take it down a few notches from my side. Let go. Take a couple steps back. Realize I'm just like them. Verse number 7. In short, both directly and indirectly do I offer every benefit and happiness to all my mothers. May I secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. So this is really Lojong. This is really Tonglen. Again, may I secretly take upon myself all the harmful actions and suffering, secretly. Let's think about this. So there's no bodhicitta attitude without great loving kindness and compassion. There's no entry to the Mahayana path without there first being love and compassion developed to the stage where it is pure, meaning free of attachment, free of delusion, and also pure, directed to all beings without any being left out. So you can see the teachings are challenging us, okay, urging us to work in opposite ways to what we're accustomed. Again, what our society reinforces, okay? And this can also cause fear. Take on somebody else's suffering. A lot of people say to me, I don't. So again, that's why it was a secret practice. It was a secret practice, okay? But this fear that may generate, I don't want the suffering, okay? You don't usually get the suffering. It's simply an attitude, okay? But the fear is actually, when you really delve into the fear, it dissolves, okay? Because the effort we make on the spiritual path, okay, is completely beneficial to our happiness and long-term success. So you're not really ending up with more suffering. You're ending up with a more beneficial mind, which is going to create more happiness. Okay. And as a result, it's also benefiting other people if you're doing your practice well. That. So again, it's a good reason to develop courage in undertaking Lojong practices, which can be harder. This is not really for beginners, Lojong. This is once you've been on the path for a little bit. And then to look at the verse more directly, in short, it says, in short, just trying to point out, okay, this is a conclusion. It's summing up a little bit, okay? Following on after the other verses, in conclusion, the practice we need is to determine to take on the suffering of others and give over our happiness. It's kind of all of these other verses kind of leading you to Tonglen, okay? And then it says directly and indirectly, I will offer every benefit and happiness to all my mothers. Directly means this life. Indirectly means future lives. Every benefit and happiness, okay? So when we talk about wanting beings to have happiness, it includes happiness and the causes of happiness. Okay. So there's resultant happiness and there's causal happiness. If people have the causes of happiness, they can continue to create happiness and freedom. Whereas if they only have the results of it, they use up the stock of the merit of the positive energy with temporal happiness. And that soon disappears, and then they're lost in suffering again. So if we can also help them have the causes of it, they keep creating more and more. So that's what's talking about every benefit and happiness. Okay. Then it says all my mothers. Okay. Again, we've reflected in bodhicitta teachings, which most of you have had, that due to the beginningless nature of mind, we've been all things to each other. We've had countless rebirths. Because the mind has no beginning, it means there's always a moment that we think is the first moment, and Buddhism says that moment has a preceding cause. Preceding, you can never find the first cause of your mind. There will always be a moment that precedes it, that causes it. So that indicates the possibility that past lives can exist, because the mind at conception will have a moment before that caused it, preceding moment that caused it, which indicates something before conception, which would indicate a past life. As a result of that, we've had countless rebirths. As a result of that, it gives us the possibility that all beings have been our mother. Numberless times, numberless times. So this is for all my mothers, completely inclusive. Every person has been my mother numberless times. So it's thinking of all of them. We're not leaving anybody out. The giving required here is to give without expecting any result, as we were just talking about in the above verse. Just as we don't expect any result when we give to ourselves, right? When we do things for ourselves, we don't expect any thanks or any type of appreciation. It's ourself. So like that, here's this attitude of including others in our heartfelt cherishing them without any expectation once again. Okay, and this is the way parents are with kids, right? Those of you that have kids, when you do things for your kids, doesn't really matter what age they are, but obviously when they're children, when they're young children, you don't expect anything back. They don't have the maturity. They don't have the knowledge. And you're just happy for your kid to be happy. Okay. We're happy for ourselves to be happy when we offer something, we do something kind for ourselves, enough to make ourselves happy that we do things for ourselves. Okay, and it's the same. So thinking over, sometimes we're all lost like children. So if we have that attitude with people that bodhisattvas, that's what they want. They're just happy to do something for people. They don't look for, well, what's in it for me? What am I going to get back? What are they going to do for me? Maybe they'll tell somebody that I did this for them. That's not bodhisattva thinking like that. That's our ordinary thinking. That pops up sometimes. Okay, and then it says, I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. So again, this type of teaching, Tonglen was part of the secret teachings to develop bodhicitta. Most of you know there's two methods to develop bodhicitta. The 7-point cause and effect method that was prevalently taught came from Master Serlingpa from Indonesia, originally from the Buddha, passed down through Master Serlingpa. And it was more prevalently taught based on equanimity, all beings have been your mother. We want to think about their kindness, repay the kindness, generating love, compassion, universal responsibility, like that. It seemed more reasonable approach. Then there was a secret approach passed on from the Buddha, eventually centuries down to Master Shantideva. And it was called equalizing and exchanging self with others. That includes the Tonglen practice. And again, this is a practice that it wasn't widely given out, only to given to those who understand it. It's not something I would recommend you publicly discuss with those that aren't Buddhist or new Buddhist, okay? Because people don't understand the idea of taking on others' suffering and giving away your happiness. They don't really see the jewel of it. especially when we're newer, because people don't want to suffer. They don't understand how suffering can be transformative like that. So, and again, if we're totally focused on worldly happiness in ignorance, practices like Tonglen don't make sense. Who wants suffering, right? All we want is happiness. So if you're focused in that way, it's people find Buddhism kind of dangerous. We don't want to do that. They're all about suffering like that. What I've also learned so much from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, as some of you have, is, and I mentioned this before in other classes too, that Rinpoche stated once in a retreat that what I'm most interested in my disciples is how they bear hardship. So it really impressed me, that phrase, that statement. And he was very, it was a retreat with a lot of old students. There were about 80 of us in the room. And Rinpoche gave it in a very direct, kind of gruff manner. Like he wasn't all that happy with, like really trying to make a point. What I'm most interested in is how my disciples bear hardship. So I thought about it, and we don't like hardship. A lot of us don't. And some of us are good at working hard, and we see that challenges pose a lot of good development, but it's difficult. And a lot of people don't like difficulty, and certainly not in the States. And I really took it to heart and have realized that for me, a lot of the arduous things I've gone through, the difficult things I've gone through, have had the greatest benefits for me, the greatest transformation, especially when it's directed or suggested or advised by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So when you really have a highly realized being that you're seeking advice from and you have faith in them, and it's hard, but so it can be hard and it can be transformative. And when it is hard, I've also found the blessings are there. And there's countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas trying to help. Not that I see them, but it just feels like somehow when things get too difficult, something shifts. And I really feel there's some sort of divine intervention like that, not that I can see again. So it's something to think about, that trajectory that is not for newer students and it's not for newer people. It's too difficult to understand. But once you get in it, you realize, you know, that's really the path. That's a lot of the path. Can I really start to welcome problems and use them for positive transformation? Bodhicitta is the antidote to self-cherishing. And that's exactly why this giving and taking practice is what it's also trying to do, to destroy the self-cherishing, which draws us closer to bodhicitta. Therefore, the giving we need is without an attitude of self-benefit, just cherishing others like we cherish ourselves. And again, we're training to broaden our cherishing, not to destroy care for ourselves. So I really want to qualify that. This is about broadening our cherishing, not leaving myself out of the equation. We are sentient beings ourselves. And again, if you're not caring for yourself, totally neglecting yourself, you're not really going to be that useful for others. So we're making the care for each other equal to the care we have for ourselves. Because often it's very imbalanced. We have so much care for ourselves, so much focus on ourselves. Okay, even when we're neglecting ourselves, there's also that negative aspect of our minds that's also about, like, people who totally ignore and deny themselves too much and say it's for the greater good, but it's not from a balanced perspective. So we want to be honest with ourselves and authentic. So you need some sort of balance, but the care for ourselves is with the broader motivation. Okay. So again, and because of this, there's no need for our care of others to be repaid in some way. That's how our care for others should be, if we can create that like that. So, and let me just check for a moment to check in with you. Are there any questions so far? Okay, everybody doing okay? And I'm curious, am I breaking up? Doing okay, great. Glad that's working. And, again, the fear comes up just to think about this. If you could really take on the sufferings of everybody to relieve them from that, would you do that? We're not often capable of doing that yet. So we're training. This is a rehearsal. We practice. That's why we call it practice. Okay. Because we can't even cope with our own suffering at the present, we feel it's so daunting to take on somebody else's suffering. Okay. As we see that bearing our own suffering, again, is finishing our karma. It's purifying negative karma when we do suffer. That's one way to also look at our suffering. So we become more courageous in the face of our own suffering. If you see it like that, we need to purify. There's no question, most of us need to purify. We've had very cushy lives, very easy lives, especially physically, most of us. What happens in the West is we have more emotional torment than I notice people in undeveloped countries that are poor. They seem to be more mentally accepting their role, peace with that, but can have incredibly physically challenging lives, carrying bricks all day on their head for 30 cents or something like that. Okay, but their minds are kind of like accepting their lot like that. We have so much mental angst in the West like that. So again, if you see it as karmic result, taking it on, then I become more courageous. Okay, I can handle this. I can handle this. Then we feel much more able to take on other people's suffering. Once you get skilled at doing your own, then I can handle a little bit more. Bodhisattvas who have trained in this way have incredible capacity to bear hardship, incredible capacity to work happily for others. It's the purpose of their lives. And you even think of somebody like Jesus. Think of somebody like Jesus. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. His words on the cross. Okay. He suffered for the sake of humanity, for other beings. Complete bodhisattva ideal. Okay. He had the compassion that would rather suffer than see somebody else suffering. And another thing, it's done in a relaxed way with our lamas, with our teachers, if you've noticed. I always notice whatever they're doing, they seem relatively relaxed about it. It's also a very nice reflection of Tibetan culture to some degree that I've noticed, but not all of our teachers are Tibetan. Okay. So again, and there's an example in some of these teachings, in the module teachings, of a swan on a lake. So you see a swan gliding across the lake, and it looks so kind of serene, so chill, and so beautiful. What you don't see are the legs paddling really ferociously underwater, back and forth and back and forth. Again, secretly doing the work. You're secretly doing the work. You're outwardly relaxed. Can you cultivate behavior like that? It's a nice example like that, to think about that. So the Tonglen practice, so useful for us. You're not going to take on someone else's karma. That's one of the characteristics of karma. You don't carry the result that somebody else creates. You will not bear that result. So you don't have to worry about, well, they're really mucking it up. But we cultivate this attitude that we want to help, that we want to help. Okay, verse 8. Undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. So before you develop bodhicitta, you want to cultivate renunciation, to see these faults of psychic existence, abandon desire for pleasures and freedom. And let me just add some notes I have from His Holiness. Okay, this verse is also about wisdom. all the preceding practices should not be defiled by the stains of the superstitions of the eight worldly dharmas. We've talked about eight worldly dharmas before, 4 pairs of situations that manipulate you, such as pain and pleasure, usually number 1, gain and loss, praise and blame, and fame and dishonor. Fame and dishonor. And we've all been, you've been in classes, most of you, before about them, looking at how they manipulate your life, how they work in your life like that. So it's not that we want to be in pain, but when we are in pain, what's your experience? How much are you thinking of others? We like pleasure, feels great, certainly a nice thing to experience, but when you are experiencing pleasure, how much of your mind can really focus on the path and benefiting others? Okay. So we're talking about extremes as well. And, and we have different aspects of the eight worldly dharmas, okay? So how do we avoid staining one's practice with these eight worldly dharmas? By recognizing that all existence is illusory, okay? Not clinging to true existence. In this way, you're liberated from the bondage of all this type of clinging. So illusory, something here, true existence appears in the aspect of various objects, wherever they manifest. But in fact, there's no true existence there. There's no, what I'll call, and you've heard me talk about this before, inherent existence. You've had many teachings on these before with different teachers. Inherent nature, these are all synonyms for true existence. Inherent nature, intrinsic quality, concretely existing, existing from its own side, with its own character, solidly, permanently, independently existing. All kind of synonyms for true existence, okay? Doesn't exist like that, okay? True existence appears in a certain way, okay, but that's an illusion. And things do not exist the way they appear to us. We get hooked, though, in the mistaken appearance due to our ignorance, okay? To see that objects are empty of true existence, that they lack true existence, that even though the existence appears, there is none. It is illusory. It is illusory. 1 second. Here we go. So let me go on a little bit. To see that objects are empty of true existence, that even though true existence appears, there is none, it is illusory. One should have a definite understanding of the meaning of emptiness, the emptiness of this true appearance, concrete appearance, manifest appearance, okay? So first, you would be certain that all phenomena are empty. You develop this certainty that all phenomena are empty of true existence. Later, when that which has absolute nature appears to be truly existence, you can refute the true existence by recalling one's previous ascertainment of the total absence of true existence. When one puts these two together, the appearance of true existence and its emptiness, you discover this illusoriness of phenomena, like that. And you also don't want to have this absence of inherent nature, this absence of true existence, without understanding things exist by depending on other things. They are dependent arisings. They are dependent arisings. They come into existence by depending on other things. Okay, that was just some quoting from His Holiness, a little bit more about that. Let me go on a little bit here. Okay. So again, to develop bodhicitta, you look at the faults of psychic existence, abandon desire for pleasures, things. This is a first developing this renunciation. You want to look more long-term, see the need to gain a good rebirth, a need to work to become free of uncontrolled rebirth. Okay, and only on the basis of that we can see the need for others to be free. You start to cultivate for others to be free, to feel inspired to aim for this highest goal of enlightenment. So slowly, that determination, when you really start striving day and night to get out of samsara, okay, to reach liberation, nirvana, okay, is renunciation, is true renunciation. It's not just about, I'm giving up good food and getting rid of my house and my money. And it's not, we're really talking about striving, investing in my practice in a certain way. And then again, being pushed by the desires from the 8 worldly dharmas, okay? Our attachment is controlling us, binding us to cyclic existence, okay? So you start to see how they manipulate. And by abandoning the 8 worldly concerns, we lessen this attachment for worldly objects slowly. And it starts to counteract our ordinary view, because most people gravitate to pleasure. Everybody wants it. Let's have more of that. Everybody moves away and is averted from pain. Pain can also manifest as a difficult person. It's uncomfortable. I want to get away from it. Same thing. We want to get things. Now it's the Christmas season, especially you see with kids, all focused on what they're going to get, what present. I've seen kids open presents. And young kids, when it's clothes, how miserable that was. I remember, my nephew erupting as a child once about, it was a sweater and he burst into tears, and it was just so humiliating for him and his parents and the person who gave him the gift. And, the kids do that, but we do that as adults in more subtle ways, don't we? So look at how it manipulates, okay? So when we start to cultivate wisdom, it's, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, the verse says, may I be released from the bondage of attachment. If we have a good understanding of emptiness, okay, based on authentic teachings about emptiness that we've studied, we've reflected on, we've learned how to meditate on emptiness effectively. This all comes in stages. Again, please start with the simple books on emptiness or the simple chapter on emptiness that's part of a bigger book. Don't start with meditation on emptiness or something really dense. Like, start with there's many slimmer books of the Lam Rim, smaller things to start there till you really have a good understanding of the pages that you read. You're focused, attentive, and on the side, learn how to meditate on emptiness. Again, I've mentioned this many times before. Kathleen McDonald, Venerable Sangye Kadro, one of our most senior nuns, her book, How to Meditate, has a really nice emptiness meditation in there. I refer to it a lot. I've used it in many courses as well. It's very palatable. It's very easy to go through. So have that on the side where you're regularly going through that. You need to spend time doing it though. That's the effort you need to make. Emptiness isn't going to come unless you're really focused on it with regular meditation. One of my teachers was saying you need an hour a day. You can break it into 2 half-hour segments, like 25 minutes, set a timer, a bell goes off, rest for 5 minutes, another 25 minutes. Like, you need to soak your mind in the view regularly. On the side, you're studying from the thinner books to the more extensive books until you really have an understanding. Write your questions down. Get to classes on emptiness. There's many that are recorded. All these lamas are teaching over. Rinpoche is often teaching about emptiness. And I love, after watching one of the videos, even just listening to the video, if I'm really paying attention, not kind of having it on in the background, but I'm spaced out about something else. If I'm really listening over and over, listening to those videos, that's why Rinpoche is doing them. It turns your mind. It turns your mind. But if you're, a student the other day was telling me she's stuck and she's been in a very lethargic mode, watching a lot of TV. And she said, how many reruns of, what's it called? It's a program I've seen a few times. The reruns of SVU, the Special Victims Unit or something. It's a crime thing, a police thing. She's like, how many reruns do I have to watch again of it? Like, you know, so your mind gets soaked in that. What does that do for the mind versus hearing about emptiness over and over and oh, and you start looking and you're making dinner and you're contemplating the merely imputed knife with the merely imputed this and that, it's there in the mind much more. That's the influence you're having. That's what you need to do if you really want to get this, if you really want to be free. This is the kind of effort we need to put in. But again, you say an hour a day is too much. What are you doing an hour a day that may be a little bit of a time waster? Do you have any hours like that? Even if you did a half an hour, can you wedge in a half an hour? It would be very, I think very, very profound for you like that. Something really powerful for you. So again, with wisdom, let's go back to wisdom. We can still see things in a way with these teachings that we've always seen, that we have the wisdom that starts to know that things don't exist like that. You start poking at things. Okay, we stop trusting the false appearances. Whereas normally without hearing about emptiness, things appear in a certain way and we just completely accept and you get angry. How does emptiness work in everyday life? How does it work in everyday life? This is where eventually we want to bring it in. And the best times it works is after you're doing your study, you're doing your practices as best as you can. You're reading your emptiness books. You've done some classroom hours. You've got some meditation done, and slowly it starts to build up a reserve in your mind, honestly, right? And there you are. And I use this example a lot is as you come out to the parking lot and you look across the parking lot and there's somebody just opened their door into your car. So here it is, and it makes all those edges fluid. Like the world has no more edges. It doesn't mean you don't act in the face of social injustice, right? It doesn't mean you don't act. You see somebody doing something really rude and you don't speak up, but how do you speak up? And can I, for a moment, poke myself, my view, the person opening their door into my car, that I've been trained to respond and react negatively to that. They shouldn't be doing that. We're trained, we're conditioned from so many different things in our world. Unbelievable how we're conditioned to respond negatively. It can just be you watching a football game. Think about the brainwashing of football in our American culture. Oh my goodness. In this area where I live, it's a religion. It is a religion. I don't know about where you're living, but it's just, I just tune it out. I can't be, but I see how people did my team this and they were this and the violence of it, and they're going to hit them back and we need to get them back. And I mean, the competition, and it solidifies. So there's so many examples of things like that in your life. We just came out of this incredibly contentious election that again creates utter duality. So everything's reinforcing it. Emptiness is the opposite of all that, completely adverse to that. So again, what if you come out to the car and you're doing all this work and you come out and suddenly you go, oh, and you notice just the dart went in. They open their door into my car. I'm just noticing my car, territorialness, possessiveness of my car, like it's something solid. And then I catch myself and go, take a deep breath. Okay, I have done that. I've opened my door into someone else's car. Did I intend to do it? Never have done it intentionally. I had packages in my arm. I look across, now I'm witnessing what is appearing to me is an old woman with packages. Well, even more fluidity there. She couldn't help it. She's having trouble with the packages, watching the whole thing. How do I want to go over? This is karma also. My karma is ripening right now. If it dinged my car, well, I've done that to other people's cars. It's actually just purifying some negative something that's now I'm finished with that. I don't have to do it. It just purified. Got a little ding in the car. Okay, good. Right? And here's even a bigger scope of mine now. Okay. Car lacks any inherent nature. The woman lacks any inherent nature. Like just dissolving that into emptiness. They lack any concrete inherent, right? Objectful kind of separate me, them. They lack any of that. Doesn't exist at all. If that's the way it's appearing to me, it's just because of my ignorance. That's all. Happens all the time. My mind is soaked in that ignorant view. That's all. I'm just misknowing the situation. Now here's where Lojong comes in to combine it. Okay. bigger space of mind. You go over and you might have a few, oh, and suddenly they realize it's your car and they look. Now they may be a nice person and say, oh my goodness, did I dent your car? Did I nick your car? I'd be happy to check with a body shop and get that paint color and take care of it for you, and if you want to give me your address, we can exchange. That's a really sweet person. For me, a little ding in my car really could care less. Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to get the car ding, but I'm really not going to have them go to all that trouble unless it's like a massive scrape or something. But I'm really not that bothered. Okay. But here's a bigger space of mind now. I see this old woman with the packages. Let all that go. Can I help you? Can I help you with your packages? Okay. So we're Lojong. We're constantly taking what the normal response that most people have. And then can I break it down that there is no solidly existing person there harming me, right? Bring karma in as well. I'm purifying some negative tendency if it upsets my mind, but the car doesn't exist as concretely as I think it does. Not at all. It comes from all kinds of parts, causes and conditions. My mind sees a configuration of a valid basis designation and then imputes car on that, labels car on that, and the car comes into existence. The woman comes into existence, me labeling on the configuration of a fleshy human with a round thing here, arms and legs, labeling woman on that, or old woman, or person, whatever. They lack any concrete inherent nature whatsoever. So we're running out of time. Any questions on that before we conclude? But so with these 8 verses, I just want to ask overall, did you get some sort of sense of a newer way or just incorporating into your practice what can benefit? Can you use some of these in the coming days and in the coming weeks? And use them in your life. Don't let them go. I mean, it's really, really powerful with adding that study of emptiness on the side. It really is really helpful for you. I can't stress. And sometimes you can keep, the verses aren't big, so it's nice sometimes to keep them. Maybe put them on the refrigerator, put them on your bathroom mirror or something. Usually we don't bring Dharma into the bathroom, but you know, if it's not like right over the toilet or something. But it's useful to have them readily available, just even if they're just on the refrigerator and you're not paying much, they go in. You start realizing, you know, take one a day. There's 8 of them. Take one a day. Take one a day and keep emptiness floating through all the days. Keep emptiness in the 8 worldly dharmas. Keep playing with those each day of, oh, look how manipulated at Christmas. I was really hoping I got her something and I was really hoping she was going to get me something. And look how that gain and loss kind of operated in my mind. And now I act like I'm really upset with her. Really? Is it that big of a deal? You know, it's just a result of my lack of generosity in the past, why they didn't get me anything. That's all. Can you let it go? Look at those 8 worldly dharmas and then look at the way your reality exists. Look at how you exist, how other people exist. Like that. So let's conclude with, if there's no other questions, I'd like to conclude with a little loving kindness practice to leave you with as we go into the holidays, finish out the year. This is actually my last public teaching of the year. I'm still teaching for this other group. I realize, and then I've got some things starting in January in New Mexico. Our New Mexico Center got me for Sundays. I forget what time it is, but it'll soon be on my website. On Sundays, you can check. It's a nice intro thing of be your own therapist that I think is focused. This one is focused on self-compassion. So if you're interested in some more exercises in self-compassion, it's Sunday daytime, I think, something like that, or maybe Florida time. It might be in the evening or something. We'll figure it out. It'll be on the website. So I'd like to just finish with some loving kindness to give us that cushion as we're also dealing with the difficulty of the pandemic, the quarantines, the rise of COVID right now. Hopefully this will be the last time that it rises this high in the States, and hopefully the vaccines will start to get disseminated for the people that want them like that, to hope to decrease this terrible illness and this very unusual time, this very unusual year we've had, hasn't it been? So, but I'm so glad we could continue these teachings online. I'd like you to just sit comfortably for a moment. Lightly close your eyes. And let's go back to that front visualization of ourself in front of us, facing us. And to support ourselves best, to practice Lojong and to understand emptiness better, it's really helpful that we care for ourselves. So imagine from your heart center, you seated here in your space, light begins to generate whatever colored rays you like to imagine that represent the care and the love you feel for yourself. Good quality care and love. And imagine that emanating from your heart, radiating out to the front visualization of yourself and melting into the heart there, granting all that peaceful, loving energy that you deserve. Imagine that melting there as you receive these wishes. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from suffering. May loving kindness manifest throughout your life. And again, may you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from suffering. May loving kindness manifest throughout your life. Say it to yourself or put it into your own words, sending these wishes to yourself, to the front visualization. And just acknowledging that front visualization any way you'd like before we release them. And imagine that front visualization dissolves from the edges into the center of the appearance, into a radiant drop of light. And imagine this drop melts into your crown, you seated in your space, as all those radiant lights come back into the center of your heart. And let's send these wishes to ourselves. Just think, may I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering. May loving kindness manifest throughout my life. I'm sorry this has been so short. There's a lot more we could do with this course. Um, it's great to just review. You can go on and you can also do it as a longer module like that, where you can do it again and again where you get more out of it. So I'm sorry I kind of shortcut the wisdom part, but we can always go back and do more on that. I'd like to do some dedication prayers that I will share my screen, recommended by Rinpoche of the right now for the COVID thing. And I'd also like to dedicate to very unfortunate. There's a man, I think he's 34 years old. He was 34, and he was hit by 2 cars in Burlington, Vermont. He's the foster child of a woman that came to our classes at Milarepa in Vermont, and suffered from a lot of addiction, and just very sad. His name is Jeremy Slaughter. Jeremy Slaughter just died, hit the other day. If you can think about him, 34 years old, and dedicate to him and all these other beings who are suffering from COVID. May they be healed instantly. And for people who have died of COVID and other illnesses, may they immediately be released from that suffering and take a precious human rebirth to get enlightened, to benefit others. And let's do these dedication prayers from Rinpoche. Can you see these? Yes, great. Thank you. May the precious supreme bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all the sicknesses, without exception, of transmigratory beings never occur again. In all my lives never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. By the force of the victorious one, Tsongkhapa, acting as our direct Mahayana virtuous friend in all our lives, may we never turn away for even a second from the pure path highly admired by the victorious ones. Like the earth, water, fire, and wind, medicines, and monastery firewood, may it always be enjoyed by all sentient beings as they like and without resistance. May I cherish all sentient beings like my own life. May I cherish them much more than myself. May all their negative karma ripen on me. May all my virtue ripen on them. Let's seal this with emptiness. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, and the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praise is the best, well, the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. To the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For the long life of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the 3 sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. I'd like to dedicate to the great flirt